What we're going to be doing today is tucking up my harness a little bit better than I had before. You guys can see here that my harness is tucked up above the frame rail, and I notched the frame rail right here, but a problem I had that I noticed in a previous video, I think it was the tie rod snapping video, is I rubbed through my harness at this low point. If you look at the arch right about here, all of the harness is above the frame except for this part right here, and so this is where I rubbed through. What I want to do to mitigate this is notch this way and move the harness more towards the back of the car to avoid being in the wheel well. But before I can do that, I have to see if the harness is long enough to do that, because it's just a stock harness, it's not extended or anything. Most people that get in this situation would like run the harness through the engine bay or over the strut towers. I didn't want to do that because honestly, in my opinion, that's like pretty ugly. What I'm going to start with is seeing if I have any room in the harness. I already slack in the harness to see if I can extend it this way. I know already that there's not that much room towards the cabin side, but I'm hoping if I pop these two rivets off right here, it'll move the harness, or it'll give the harness a little bit of play so I could pull it that way and have some slack. So I'm going to try that right now. It's hitting something. I might have to take the coolant overflow out. So it looks like I can't really pull the harness out this way because the coolant overflow is in the way, and then the intake is in the way of the coolant overflows. So I'm gonna pull the intake off, then the overflow, and then I could see the harness down here. So I want to see if I could like break anything loose to move the harness more out.
I guess maybe because it's hot outside.
So what I did is I popped these two rivets on that were holding the plate on for the harness, and I kind of like pulled the harness that way and then popped the rivet that was over here, which gave this much more slack in the harness, which I do think is enough to notch over there. So this seems like it'll work out. One thing I did want to make sure of is that the overflow could fit again since the harness is moved more towards it. So the hole lines up and the hole lines up. It works, which I don't even need. That's deleted. Alright, because I can only make noise until the sun goes down, and we are almost to that point, I'm going to start with the loudest part of all this, which is cutting the frame. Where I decided to cut it is following the actual line of the frame. If you were to look at the back of this area, it's hollow, but right above it is the actual frame. So if I were to cut here, it would be too much. So I'm going right under there, going at a circle that's 1.5 inches because I have a 1.5 inch hole saw, and then I'm just bringing it straight down. The reason I'm not cutting all of this is because my tire does rub right here, and I do want this still to guard the harness a little bit. So you can see that the frame runs along this line that I made on the outside because I didn't want to cut into the frame, and then I'm just going to go straight down and over. What I'm going to be starting with is the hole over here, and then I'm just going to use a Dremel to finish off the lines. And then after that, I'll repair the wires, tuck it, and see if it still has a chance of hitting. Hopefully not. So this is a center punch. Basically what it does is punch where you want to drill a hole so the drill bit doesn't walk around when you're drilling. And the way this one works is it has a spring, so as you're pushing, it basically just clicks. It like loads up, okay, so it'll load up tension and then it'll just release it. A traditional center punch is just literally a punch with a hammer. You can see all the layers I cut through on here. At some points it was 3 layers, some it was 2, and at one point it was 1 layer. That's why it took forever to cut through. So before resorting to a death wheel, which scares the shit out of me so I don't like using it, I'm gonna try using a Dremel to finish cutting the ends of that area. But if it doesn't work, then I will resort to the death wheel. But hopefully this works, because I do not want to use that. This is gonna take forever with this.
So the big one?
Yeah, round 3. I think I can finish that with that one. So we had to take a little detour to the store because somehow all my electrical tape went missing. So I picked up some 3M electrical tape to wrap up all the exposed wires that are on the harness, which isn't that much actually. And then what I'm going to be doing is taking some vacuum line and cutting it in half down the middle so it splits. And then I'm going to lay it right in this area, because even though I did file down this edge and make it like not sharp, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I don't want the wires to rub against here and split, so we are gonna put some vacuum line here. So that's pretty much everything for tucking a harness on an S14. You'll notice now when you look at the arch over here that the harness is out of the way and won't rub because we didn't notch the frame right here. We put a vacuum line here so the waters don't chafe against the metal edge. And then one thing I forgot to point out from the beginning is, since I did have this tucked before, I did relocate my hood cable into the engine bay, and all I had to do that was I unbolted the latch at the front of the car right here, disconnected this cable, which normally would run through here along the harness, and just moved it into the engine bay and connected it back at the hood latch. So now the hood latch cable runs from this grommet through this hole into the engine bay, and the harness comes along here and runs up. And then also I did have a harness shield. I know most people do it how I had it originally, which is just notching the pinch weld right here, bending it up and pushing it out of the way. But as you guys saw, that wasn't enough clearance, so hopefully this fixes all that. And hopefully you guys learned an alternative way to tucking your harness that isn't putting it in the engine bay. Thanks for watching.